This is day 87 of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. If you would be interested in sponsoring a share or more in the future, it would be very much appreciated, very much. And please contact me directly. Today we are doing Siman Nun Gimel, Sif Lamed Aleph through Siman Nun Hey, Sif Gimel. So Lamed Aleph is the last in the Siman of the last halach in the Siman about the Shliach Tzibur, and then we go on to other things. No, second last. Sorry. Lamed Aleph. Kasher Beta Beis Yosef B'Sif Chav Vav. The Beis Yosef writes that a call shenogulim nos anashim atzorcha tzibur zman a kahila which appoints people for designated time periods for the needs of the community. When their time is elapsed, they leave and other comes. Bein the chazan, whether it's not sure chazan here means the shliach tzibur. Could be that it here means like somebody who's the more like the shamish in our parlance. But whatever it is, bein the chazan, bein the kupa shel tzedakah to collect charge of the community chest, and the sham ruim hatzirim tzibur or any other appointment which has to do with the tzibur. Bein shnoli alim schar bein shnoli aim nolim whether they take salaries or not. I feel low couple zman, but and even if they didn't set for them a time, stomach kiperusha. We assume that generic contract terms apply to them. Because that is the custom there, even though details might not have been discussed. On the other hand, but here Baruch says a pashut, that's pashut, but Mr. Bura says that in our day and age we don't remove people unless under suspicion, and therefore you should not be able to move somebody even if he was hired on the assumption of time lapse, unless they specifically specified in the contract that after the time elapses, his term will be over and the two sides have to come to a new agreement. So Mr. Bura gives less leeway on this than the Arukh HaShulchan. Back to Arukh HaShulchan. Rabbeinu Ramak Kosav the Yesh Mishukasa the Shatz Yispel V'Toch Sev Nichol Tzibur. The Vade Nichtav Lishmo. The Shliach Tzibur should read out of a sefer, which is unique for the tzibur. In other words, all the tzibur's customs, etc. And it's certainly written for the right person and I guess the right purposes. Today everybody has that printed tziburim, so this is not relevant. Shatzir mentioned one was involved in all, or was appointed on all matters of the city. K'mosh Kosa Rashi b'chulin chav dalet. V'mispal b'chol yom shachris u'mincha b'aris otir rabim yidei chavosam. And he would daven every morning, afternoon, and night to be motzi the rabbin. B'shem Chazon, as we mentioned before, the name Chazon is kind of generic. Matzim Mishnayos are common yonim. It goes in several things when it's mentioned in Mishnayos. Mishnah Perakam the Shabbos Perush Rav Chazan is Melame Tinokos. He's somebody who teaches children. Umakos Peragil Piresh Shamash Shliach Basin. He's the emissary basin to execute their will. V'tan Peragil Piresh Kankin Shamoshim. Also the beetle state. But Ayin Sham. V'Arukh Berach Chazan Piresh Chazan Shliach Tzibur. So the Arukh says that Chazan means a Shliach Tzibur like is used customarily today. So says the Arukh HaShulchan, in general, Hu Lashon Chozeh. This is somebody who has to look out. Because he has to look out as to how to read the Torah. That's actually from the Arukh still. That's why it's called Chozeh, because he looks into how to read the Torah. Arukh is not to be confused with Arukh HaShulchan. Arukh was a Rishon, Italian Rishon. Now we use Chazan Shel Tzibur interchangeably. And in our day and age, he's only appointed, in contradiction to what the Beis Yosef seemed to be talking about before in the previous sif, Lispalel, to daven, nagain, and to sing Beis Shabbos Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim on certain festive occasions. Everybody else davens on their own. We do not need the shlich tzibur to be motzias. Therefore, we're not as meticulous about these appointments. Nevertheless, this is obligatory. We should be God-fearing. Beloved, if not, his davening is a repulsive, and will arouse the prosecution in heaven. May heaven forfend. Siman Nun Dalet. Halachos which have to do with Yishtabach. Aleph, Yishtabach ain't a posachas bebaruch. Yishtabach does not open with a baruch, because it's considered adjacent to Baruch Shamar, and bracha smuch chaberta does not require its own independent bracha at the beginning. Klomar, meaning, says Arukh HaShulchan, Baruch Shamar bracha shlifnei psukei de zimra. Baruch Shamar is the bracha which prefaces psukei de zimra. Yishtabach is a bracha shalachrei psukei de zimra, and Yishtabach is the bracha that concludes psukei de zimra. So you can't say Yishtabach as a result unless you said Baruch Shamar and some psukim de zimra. And the end of the bracha is Chayol Amim, but Sham Tzuchim Lanos Amen. They have to answer Amen there. V'lochar Godom Mulabatish Bachos. We have Nusach Sfard. I know that Nusach Sfard has a minute to say Amen after Godom Mulabatish Bachos. Even though in Hallel the bracha there ends Mulabatish Bachos, Mekom B'Yishtabach Nimsheches Ad Chayol Amim. B'Yishtabach goes on. So Chay b'tzerei v'lo b'pasach. Chay and not Chai. The Mishnah Berurah says that some people say this, some people say like that. Kvanis bar b'simin avsi dat avgav das Rabbeinu Beis Yosef shachar yishtabach chol anos amen al brachas atzmo. Even though the Beis Yosef says you can answer amen on your own bracha after yishtabach because it's the end of a series. K'machar b'nei Yerushalayim birkas the Muslim, like after b'nei Yerushalayim when we bench. Nevertheless, unless we don't have that minhag. We don't hold that way. It's not our minhag. In other words, in Medinos Ashkenaz, it's not the minhag. For Raklin and Ze'adip, it has one advantage that they when you answer when you finish most brachas, if you finish the same time as the Chazan, you cannot answer Amen because it seems like you're answering Amen on your own bracha, which is generally not permitted. But a bracha at the end of a series like Yishtabach, you can answer Amen if you finish simultaneously with the Chazan. That is the specific leniency which remains for Bnei Ashkenaz. Base. Even though Pesukei de Zimra and Yotzor are two separate issues, separate segments of davening, for in Kaddish B'nai we say a Kaddish B'nai as a kind of semicolon. Nevertheless, also I say with Dibur Ben Yishtabach Yotzor can't talk between Yishtabach and Yotzor. They should come and say it tefillah because they're all part of the order of davening. They're like one thing. Poskim bring the Yerushalmi. We don't know. I don't remember there is such Yerushalmi, but it's quite possible that somebody who speaks between Yerushalmi and Yotzar has a sin. And he returned when they announce all the people who can go back from the battle, as in. The end of the Parsha Shoftim, which actually is this first cycle, this week's Parsha. He can go back because this, so this Aveira should not be prosecution against him. Anything in the Mashiach Nogim Lamar that we say to him then after Yishtabach, we say that tefillah. This is considered at that time of year that's the order of the davening. Excuse me. Kamoda Rambam named Oz Yashir Achar Yishtabach. So according to Rambam, we say Oz Yashir after Yishtabach, and that's not considered to be a problem. Kamosh Klam Siman Nun Beis. We have to say Klomikar Rak Divrei Chol. An interruption only is considered to be if it's Divrei Chol. And Magen Avraham, he says in the brackets here, Nishar B'tzarchim B'loi Dati Lama. Gimel, Kom, came in the Shtein Yonimim. Nevertheless, since there are two manners, Pesukei de Zimra and Yotzor, in fact, Lo Dam Gamre, we'll have to say Pesukei de Zimra. It's not completely the same, like interrupting the middle of the Zimra. V'zesh kosar b'seinu b'al shalom b'seinu gimel zel shono. V'yesh b'shol mer, that's why they write in the Shulchan Aruch that there are those who say shel tzorchei tzibor, for the needs of the community, or live so tzedakah, or in order to distribute tzedakah, l'misha bali space, and tzedakah for somebody who's come to collect funds from tzedakah, mutlav sika can interrupt at that point, which is tabking yotzor. V'zen yispashi v'ashnogu barbei mekomos l'barei choleh, and therefore they spread up a custom which we don't have today in many places to give a mishaber for choleh, or to demand in shul that a person's judgment court case should be heard. All it's called the mitzvah. And then when they go back to daven after this interruption, Yomar Shatz Mixas Psuki de Zimra, you should say a additional Psuki de Zimra. Yomar Kaddish Oleim. And then say Kaddish. To the Olam and Kaddish, Plotila for Shalafan. You can't say Kaddish without praise beforehand. Arvis below Kaddish. And that's why our minhag Ashkenaz is to start Mar without Kaddish. Those who do inspired, who start Mar with a Kaddish, do so after saying some Psukim. V'chein mishu lo yelo tzitzis or tefillin until this time. Bevila ben yishtabach lekadish yochel anicham mevarach aleim. He can put them on and make a bracha. Aval men kaddish levarchu lo yafsik shum davar. But between the kaddish itself and baruchu, there should be no interruption. The Mishnah Berurah argues. He says that you could put on the tefillin between kaddish and baruchu because that has the stats of bein haprokim between the paragraphs. But between Baruch and Yotze, or you should not put on the film because that is in the middle, like the middle of the paragraph. And that, of course, Arukh HaShulchan will agree with, as he writes, okay, so this is a little bit cryptic what the Bali Shulchan Aruch right here. So the Arukh HaShulchan here in Siftal comes to explain it. Birat Varim. It means because there are two separate things. Nagul of Sipam with Var Mitzvah. You're allowed to interrupt between them for Dvar Mitzvah. And it would be more appropriate, of course, that the interruption should be after saying Kaddish. Because the Kaddish is the concluding the Psuki the Zimra part. Then Kaddish will feel Mikodim, because Kaddish must proceed after a Tefillah. So I can stop before Kaddish. Kaddish, blow Tefillah, Smuchel Kaddish. You can't say Kaddish afterwards, just out of thin air. Nevertheless, say Kodim Kaddish. Nevertheless, the custom is to make the hefsek before the Kaddish. Because according to the Kabbalah, you're not allowed to interrupt it all between Kaddish and Baruch Hu, Uben Baruch Hu Yotzer. Of course, according to Mishnah Berurah, we said it was some more lenient. Baruch HaShulchan says you can't make a hefsek in either of these places. Came back, Kodim Kaddish. So you have to stop before Kaddish. So, but if that's the case, what are the Kaddish going to go on? So, should say a few more Psukim de Zimra. Barak is in order to be able to say Kaddish. So, in other words, I'm not sure this came across earlier properly, but you wouldn't say two Kaddish. I think that I might have misspoke or not made that point clear. You would never say two Kaddish even back then. You'd say Yishtabach, then you'd take it the Tzorchei Tzibor, and then you'd say some Psukim, and then Kaddish, and then Baruch Hu. Ragzel de Bizman. So Arukh HaShulchan says this is all during their times. As Manenu, in our day and age, Lo Shaman Me'olam. We never heard such a thing. La sos hefsek me yishtabach lekadish. Make the difference between yishtabach and kaddish. Chol ikuvei atfil etzleinu, and all of the impediments to davening, all of the digressions, or ezat tzedakah, or dealing with tzedakah, how you couldn't create the Torah is before laning. That's what that we already mentioned, that when they bring the Talmud, they usually put them to Yishtab and Kaddish, but Rabbi Aaron see B'Simen Nun Gimel see base, the Zel Yochid, that's for an individual. Aval Shlech Tzibor Yiyah Kodem Yishtabach, but as the Arukh HaShulchan said back there, the Shlech Tzibor puts to be on before Yishtabach, he doesn't really have a choice since he cannot become B'Yishlev Tzibor from Yishtabachan without a talus. Ayin Shom. In the brackets, Mashkazim Avram Binyan Prisa Shma Achar Shmon Eser B'Achar Kaddish Basra, that the people repeat the Shema after Shema Eser and after the last Kaddish. Lo Shamana to Aminag Hazeh, and evidently that Magen Avram's minhag had two Kaddeshim, one after another. The Arukh HaShulchan says we don't have such minhag. U'makom shesh minhag shita she'en lamar Kaddeshim shnei Kaddeshim smuchim zeh lezeh b'lihefsik mizmorim beinayim. In any event, you cannot say two Kaddeshim without an interruption in the middle. U'mitzvah l'katzar b'Kaddeshim, and it's a mitzvah to say fewer Kaddeshim. As we are about to learn in Siman Nun Hey. Okay. Aleph. HaKaddish is Shevach Gadol. Kaddish is a great praise, menorah, and an awesome one. Shetitnu Achik Nesel Gola Achrei Churban Bayis Rishon. Achik Nesel made after the first Churban. V'tfilah Chilu Shmo Yisbrach Michurban Beis HaMikdash. That's a tefillah concerning the desecration of God's name because the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. V'churban Eretz Kodesh because the Holy Land was destroyed. They saw Barba Kanfos swords and the scattering of Israel among all the four corners of the world. They should be greater and holier. Shmo Yisrael, God's holy name. His name be blessed. It's a parallel to that which the Navi says in Yechezkel Amches, V'yiskadalti v'yiskadashti. I become greater and holier, v'nodati, and become known, le'enei goyim rabim, to the eyes of many nations. V'yodu keni Hashem will know that I am God. V'amar Rabbi Yossi b'reish brachos. It says, well, it begin brachos, tav gimel, shepam achasham a baskol. Once he heard a voice, a voice from heaven, we usually translate that as Sheminahem es Kiona, that was, I'm not sure what the dove's call is called in English, but it was making a mournful sound, like a dove. From Meres, and says, Oil bonim sheba abanav seimech rafti is basi. For the children on account of their sins, I destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. So after he said holy, and burnt the sanctuary. B'iklisim, and put them in the galus v'chulei. Omar lo Eliyahu Hanavi told Rabbi Yossi, shalosh pamim bayom Yossi bas kol kazeh. His voice comes out 3 times a day. V'la'od, not only that, el shebashosh Yisrael nichnasim lebate knesios. When the Jews go into the shuls, batei midrashos, and the batei medrash, v'nim amen yehei shmei rabbah. We say the amen yehei shmei rabbah part of Kaddish. Kosh Baruch Menaneh Barosh, God, so to speak, nods his head for Omer, and he says, Ashrei Amel Shemakausi Noso Bebeis Okach. Praiseworthy is the king who gets such his praises in his house. Malo of Shiglas Banav, what will be with a father who banished his children? Foilam Lebanim, and woe to the children, Shagum Al Shulchan Aviyam, which were sent away from the father's table. They go to Malos covers its great level, its high sanctity. Tiknu Lashon, it's instituted in Aramaic. They should be Bavel Dibru Lashon Zeh. And because in Babel they speak this language. In order that everybody should understand this high praise, they put it into the spoken language. Each time said there are other hidden reasons having to do with Malachim not understanding Aramaic, but if the Arukh HaShulchan doesn't go into them, certainly we don't have to go into them. Base, Chazal say, anybody who answers Yemei Shmei Rabbah with all of his power, Korin Lo Gzardino, they rip up for him any negative decrees, Pasam Shar Gaden, and they open for him the gates of Gan Eden. Ubipsikta, B'maiser Rishon Ben Elisha. The Psikta, when the other Midrash Halacha brings down the Rishon Ben Elisha, Omer says, when Jews come to shuls, V'amrim Yehei Shmei Rabbah and Varach B'kol Ram, they say Yehei Shmei Rabbah out loud, the Vatling Zeres Kashos. This negates the negative decrees, hard decrees against the Jewish people. Shili Soita, Isa at the end of Soita says, the Ameni Shmei Rabbah, Echamem B'dei Olam is one of the pillars of the world, Ayin Sham. V'yal Yeshi Zor B'zema Od, and therefore you have to be very careful to with Ameni Shmei Rabbah, and it's B'kavana Uv'korah. To answer with kavana and with a loud voice. Gimel Yesh Me'amon B'nei Yisrael Shesobrish the Mitzvah Arbos Kadeshim. There are many Jews who hold as a mitzvah to say Kadeshim, as many as possible. But Kamatom Yimim, how mistaken are they? V'korani aleim, and I say concerning them, tishtapechna avnei kodesh, they spill out the holy stones. Paskin Echa v'gomer. They mishtamshim b'sharbito shel melech machem l'HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you don't use the scepter of the King of Kings, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, rak if he mashir shosar, only to extend that he permitted us to do so. V'amar b'bohem, and some of you make so many kadeshim, Zalza b'hadras kodesh, he makes a mockery of the respect for that which is supposed to be retained in holiness. One of the great poskim, the Knesset Zagdoila, writes in the Simon, the Geshem Shetov might be brachos, just like you're supposed to diminish the amount of brachos you make. Mogay Tov might be kadeshim, so to diminish the amount of kadeshim you say. One of the great righteous people was bitter about this. Not one of the Hasidim of what we call Hasidim today, but one of the very pious people. The Dvar Shmuel was earlier than the Hasidic movement. This is what he says. Hamarbi b'amiras hakadeshim. People who say too many kadeshim, matishin kok kedushas Hashem agolav hanora. They diminish the holiness of God, His awesome, His great and awesome holiness. Hakashono. L'chein neva'er. Therefore, we're going to explain kama kadeshim yesh lomar betfilos. How many kadeshim you should say during davening? Uperusho shel kaddish, and the explanation of what kaddish means is bar b'simin nun vav b'siyata dishmayo. We explain in the next simon.